Baby, it's cold outside. Hey, what up, world? It's your boy Tommy D. It is cold. It was 9 degrees the other day here on Long Island. And, let's talk about being cold. And we're going to talk about food insecurity. We can talk about people experiencing homelessness. It's cold for those of us who are not having such challenges. So we're going to talk about that. This show is called Philanthropy and Focus. I'm called Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector. Got to get a couple things out of the way before we jump into my conversation with my guest, Catherine Fritz, VP of Development and Communications for Long Island Cares, the Harry Chapin Regional Food Bank. Catherine, before I rant and rave about some things, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am cold, but
You
I'm
are.
kind of good.
You are. It is cold, man. It's cold. The other day, 9 degrees. I was on a meeting with some folks from Syracuse. That's upstate New York for y'all. But I was on a meeting and I said, let me ask you something, Pierre, because this guy I know called Pierre. And I said, Pierre, let me ask you a question, man. It was 9 degrees here on Long Island the other day. What was it in Syracuse? And he said it was 9 degrees as well. I had assumed it would have been colder, but it turns out it was 9 degrees up there as well. I guess nine is nine. It is what it is. All right, let's get into a couple things. New York City Imagine Awards. Go to NYC Imagine Awards com. I will share this. So if you are watching this, you will see me sharing it now. NYCImagineAwards.com, and you'll see a clock ticking down. The event is October 28th, 2025. That's this year, 2025. But the applications are now due. They're due May 19th at midnight. So don't wait till May 19th at 11:45, like some people might. Do it ahead of time. But there's 6 different categories in the New York City Imagine Awards. If you work for, connect with, sit on the board of, know an organization that does work in the five boroughs of New York City, is a nonprofit organization, they should apply. It is the fifth annual New York City Imagine Awards. And one last thing I'd like to say is in the last couple of weeks, the Long Island Imagine Awards process has been going on. So a friend of mine said to me, Tommy D, you're always on an Imagine Awards meeting. And I'm like, wow. I mean, wait till Ken Serini announces that we're going to do the Westchester Imagine Awards and go on and on and on. Shout out to my buddy Ken Serini and the whole team at Serini and Associates here on Long Island. The Long Island Imagine Awards, I got to go out and do 4 interviews. The Nest at NCC, my alma mater, Nassau Community College. Catherine, I don't know if you've done some work with the Nest, right? The food pantry there. So Sharon and Helen probably coming on this show in the next couple of weeks. Long Island Music and Entertainment Hall of Fame. Got to meet with the folks out there. That was exciting. One of the semifinalists in Arts and Culture for Long Island Imagine Awards. My friend Roberta Rosenberg at Destination Accessible, which is an organization that has a website telling folks what who may have mobility issues, which organizations, businesses, restaurants have accessibility, and you can go to their website and check it out. And my fourth one is who I'm actually interviewing on a different show this afternoon, Ranger Eric Powers, not to be confused with the Power Rangers, but from CEED Long Island, which let me get you the acronym, gang, because I don't remember what the acronym stands for, so I will tell you real quick, because that's how this show works. If I don't know it, I'm going to go find the answer. So the Center for Environmental Education and Discovery, which is out in Brookhaven, and they got 60 plus acres, and we're going to be interviewing Ranger Eric on a show we call the Professionals and Animal Lovers Show. Anyway, later this afternoon. But those are the four that I got to go out and interview and have a great time, because what happens in the process, if you don't know, you've probably heard me talk about the Imagine Awards, is once the applications come in, those of us on the committee make the decision who the semifinalists are going to be. And then after that, those of us on the committee get to go out and do these interviews and write a supplemental piece to the original application. So that's what I got to do. Those went in. So there's always Imagine Award stuff going on. Catherine, talk about imagining. Imagine a world with no hunger, right? I mean, let's go back to John Lennon for that. And in the case of your organization, Harry Chapin, let's talk about. You know what? I want to hear your story. I see, like I'm like torn. I'm like, Tommy, stop, relax. We got an hour. But the thing for me always on this show is I start out with, why are you in the nonprofit sector? Like, how did this even happen? And I promise everybody we're going to get into, what I think is an absolute tragedy, that there is anything food insecurity on the planet. Let's not make it regional. Let's not make it national. I'm talking on the planet. There should be, this is, I believe, and maybe we'll get to it today, but I don't think this is a lack of resources. I think this is a lack of appropriate resource distribution. That's my opinion. I think there's plenty of things. I think it's an access issue. I'm sure Catherine has a lot to add or disagree with me, and we'll get into that today. Not that this is a debate show. I was at my kid's school the other night. One is going up from the middle school to high school next September. And I was like, man, I should have been on the debate team. They were going through all the clubs and stuff like that of different things. And I always wanted to be a game show host, Catherine Fritz. So I sort of got my some people want to be an astronaut, some people want to be a firefighter. I don't want to go in a rocket ship and I don't want to go into a burning building, but I would like to be Bob Barker. Not now because he isn't here anymore, but let's get let's get into it. Catherine Fritz, I'm done being silly for now. We're going to get into the show. Show's Philanthropy and Focus. The organization, again, is Long Island Cares, the Harry Chapin Regional Food Bank. Catherine, why do you work in the nonprofit sector? How did that happen?
Sure. So, ironically, you're talking about Seed. Seed literally is across the street from where I live.
Oh, look.
And my start in the nonprofit world started in environmental science. So I know Seed really well. I started while I was in college in an environmental center working for the state of Connecticut. And I basically had to figure out how to feed animals, educate people, make sure that the natural environment was protected, and connect people who were interested in that mission to the work that I was doing. So that's where it started. I did a ton of research in that job, which led me to my next step working for a local hospital here on Long Island. In a research, the breast cancer research study project actually was recruited to American Cancer Society after that, spent more than a decade at American Cancer Society, and then went to a cancer research fund here on Long Island again. So I stayed in the cancer world for quite some time and really learned a lot of skills in nonprofit development, learned a lot about fundraising and connecting donors, how to build relationships, how to talk on the radio and on TV. Met a lot of people, made a lot of connections, and made a big choice to get out of the field of cancer, actually, because it was heartbreaking. And then I went to work for the Guide Dog Foundation and America's Vet Dogs on Long Island, and spent, oh gosh, close to 12 years, I think over 12 years there, running development and communicate and working with communications. And then got an amazing phone call from my friend Paul Pachter, the CEO here at Long Island Cares, who I'd known for a long time. And there was an opportunity to move to the food bank. It was pre-pandemic. I think had I been able to forecast that a pandemic was coming and that I was going to a food bank, I may not have made that choice because I think that certainly the healthcare industry and food banking were hit really hard by the pandemic because it just really came to the forefront of the news about food insecurity. So that's how I came to Long Island Cares.
So thank you for all that. Really, that's what a great story. I have questions about the animals. I have so many questions. But
Good.
why was there something in your like did you for I don't this is the wrong way to say it, but did you end up in that job at with the state of Connecticut like because you were going for a job? Was there something that drew you to that type of work? Like why did that happen?
Oh, sure. So as a kid, I loved animals. Who doesn't? I think a lot of kids kind of go that direction. But I was really drawn to just environmental issues. My father was Native American, so I was brought up, kind of in that mindset of, respect for the natural world. I ended up in a campground in Connecticut as a little kid, volunteering at this nature center in something called Hammonasset State Park. It's one of the largest parks in the state of Connecticut. And I loved it. I loved working, picking up crabs and fish and starfish and, snakes and all sorts of stuff. And that led me to go to school. I always laugh about this. So I have a degree in marine biology.
No kidding.
And that's where I thought my life was going to stick. And ended up becoming the director of that nature center at a very young age. We won't talk about the age that I started because more than 30 years just makes me sound old. So I'll say I started at 3. How's that?
Listen, this is my show. We can say whatever we want. That's what's fun about it.
Yeah, but that's where I started. But it was, just really interest in the natural world and how humans affect it and how we could, help preserve things, make things right in the community. And that's kind of where I started. And then it led me into research, which led me into talking about water quality, and things that were happening, which literally that's what led me to the job in the local hospital, because it was the breast cancer study project here on Long Island. And a big factor that was being looked at was water on Long Island, and did it affect the rate of breast cancer on Long Island? And it was just sort of one of these fortuitous things. I jumped into it because I needed a job after college.
That's like how, so isn't that so cool though? Because you get exposed to certain things, you get to experience things. And I say this as somebody who is, I have no issue telling you I'm 47 years old, gang, because I still dress like I'm 14, like my son. But I just think it's important to realize and have this open-mindedness at any age, man. Like just to be, I know what I do now. We own an employee benefits agency, guys. You know this, most of you. Shout out to Vanguard Benefits, our agency, very focused on working with, supporting the nonprofit sector, and at many occasions, having clients who are in the sector. And I'm interested in so many other things, right? There's so much, life has so many options. And I remember a story one time where I met this attorney in like South Ozone Park, Queens. Shout out to Queens, the whole borough. I'm shouting out to the entire borough. Let's go Mets. But shout out to this gentleman. I never saw him again. I don't think I ever will see him again. But he was, at the time, I was in my mid-20s, early, like late 20s, something like that. And he was an attorney, and he maybe had me about like 15 years or something. And he goes, Tommy, the one thing that bums me out is I'm not going to be able to learn all the things I wanted to learn because I won't be here long enough. Like he wasn't sick. He wasn't saying he was going anywhere, but he was like, even if I got 80 years, Tommy, still left at 40 and I got another 80. He goes, I can't learn it all. My point is, gang, dude, there's so much there. And yes, if you like YouTube like I do, you can learn a lot from YouTube and stuff like that. But there's a lot of nonsense on this social media stuff, gang. Oh my God, I'm in trouble. I just said that don't watch social media. But, don't get caught up in watching people do just a dance on TikTok or whatever. Go learn something. There's so much there. If you totally vibe on marine biology, go do that. Like, go learn some stuff. If you want to do a show, or if you want to end the stigma around mental health, that's my thing. Hashtag ending the stigma together. If you want to do that, do it. Lean in, meet people, have conversations. It's incredibly important. So I'm just getting all that from you, Catherine, where you're just kind of saying, you fell into something, you like this, you find out and I think at any age, if you dig something, go after that. Try to figure out a way where, you can, this is the big word of the day, monetize, but find a way where you can earn a living doing something you love. And I don't know. That's it. I'm off the soapbox for a moment, but I'm sure I'll get back on it at some point this morning. I love that you're passionate about what you do. What I asked you earlier is, when I was looking at the website, by the way, licares.org, licares.org. That's the website. You have a team of 13, but it wasn't always that way. When you started, it was a smaller team. So we're going to start when we come back on that, but I wanted something you said, and I go way on, I really depend on my gut and what it's going to tell me. So you talked about two things. Before we go to a break, I'm just going to say a couple things. You mentioned that your dad was Native American. So I used to, I think in terms of like, we're stewards of this land, right? This is not our land, right? It's like we're stewards, right? You don't own anything, gang. We should be taking care of nature. So I thank you for putting that in my mind. And the other thing is, remember the story you mentioned, starfish. You know that starfish story, everybody? Little boy walking down beyond, way beyond the eye could see. There's starfish all on the sand, and he's throwing the starfish back in the water. And somebody says to him, "Hey, what are you doing? You're not going to be able to get all those starfish in the water. The starfish were going to die if they didn't get back in the water." So he's throwing them in, and somebody says, "It doesn't make a difference." He goes, "It made a difference to that one." As he threw that starfish back in the water, it made a difference to that one. Make a difference in somebody else's life, gang. We're going to keep making a difference here. When we come back, Catherine, I want to talk about your team. I want to talk about development. I want to talk about obviously what the organization does and the impact and I got to look at my notes from before you threw it to me in the text. 16 million pounds of food, 16 million pounds, the most ever in the 45-year history of this organization, that are in the hands of people who were in the bellies of people who were food insecure, and probably, unfortunately, still are food insecure. That was 2024 digits, the numbers from 24. We're going to talk more about it. Catherine, it's a whirlwind. Welcome to the show. Ready?
Yep.
All right, we're going to commercial. We'll be right back.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Oh, what a silly song. What a silly song. Not a silly song at all. Nonprofits do need connections. And shout out to my uncle, Brendan Levy, my friend from the Queens Chamber of Commerce. He is the singer of that song, although we wrote it together. And I will be with him later today. He invited me to a networking sort of schmooze deal over at the Islanders game. Although I'm not necessarily an Islanders fan, I am a fan. I've been to 3 games this season for somebody who's not a fan, but I'm a fan of getting invited to things that I didn't pay for. I'm certainly a fan of that. So shout out to Uncle Brendan Levy. Shout out to the Queens Chamber of Commerce. All right, let's get after it right now. Nonprofit certificate at Malloy. I just pulled that out because it was something you are still an adjunct professor at Malloy University.
So
Yeah.
I teach as part of the certificate in nonprofit course. So
Yeah.
it's not a graded course. It's actually something that you said earlier about, finding things to learn. A lot of the students that come through that class are students that had another career and are looking to get into nonprofits for a number of reasons. So I've had people that wanted to start their own nonprofit. I've had, I think the most impactful thing that a student ever said to me is they were a lawyer. They had a super successful career. They made a lot of money. And I always ask the students, why are you here? Why are you interested in nonprofits? And what she said to me sticks in me still. She said, I was a lawyer and I filled my pockets with money as a lawyer. She's like, now I need something that's going to fill my soul. And that's why she went into nonprofit work.
I love that. I love that. I have a colleague, and I got to look her up on LinkedIn quick to make sure I get a name right. Adrian Carroll over at Malloy. She's very involved in the business program over there, but they had a cohort of students that gets involved with nonprofits. So our family foundation, in memory of my cousin Linda, Lindy Lou Foundation, was the project of these graduate students. So I got to, I didn't know if you all could connect it, but I took some work. I did the coursework with the Institute for Nonprofit Practice about 2 years ago. And of course we learned together, but what really came out of that was the relationships that I built. I'm interested in the program you're talking about. I cannot focus on it right now, Catherine, because we have to do a show. We're like doing a show. So I'm more speaking to me than you on that one. I got to focus, man. So, but I think, the opportunity to be in that coursework, even for you, is just great as the person leading some of the work, because it's great to interact with all these people and build more relationships.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's, my entire career, I've stayed kind of in that avenue of talking to new leaders, talking to people interested in nonprofits. I'm a member of the Association of Fundraising Professionals for just that reason. Stayed active with that from many years ago when it had a completely different name, but we have an active group here on Long Island. I'm part of the global AFP, so it's a great place to just learn.
I see that. I'm looking at the notes that we have over here. I don't know if you were in the room, but I emceed Philanthropy Day for AFPLI a couple weeks, or probably 10 weeks back now. But this coming Tuesday, Thursday, the 30th next week, is the awards program, right? So I'm sure we'll see a lot of our friends that night. It's important to be involved. It's important to be part of the change. I say it all the time. So I said this right before we went to break. I said, there was a team of 3 on your development team, and now it's more than that. So let's talk about, if we could, just why don't we define development real quick for people?
Sure. So development really, it encompasses a lot of things, but the main focus is fundraising. So it is how nonprofits go about doing the business that we do, make sure that our mission is successful, talk about our vision. It takes dollars to do that. And the money comes from lots of different places. My team focuses on what we consider public support and revenue. So that's you, me, it's regular donors, everyday donors. Our bread and butter donors are donors who give us under $50 a year. All the way up to our major corporations and huge foundations that give us, very large grants to help us move forward the mission. So it's everything in between. I also cover communications, which is a generalized term for marketing and communications. So it's media, social media, it's advertising, it's digital, it's all the ways that we get out messaging about what we do, and how to help support people who are suffering from food insecurity.
So let's talk about what you and I talked about for a moment before we got started, and let's get into a little bit of mission. Thank you for that development piece there. I have a lot of questions about it, but I want to get to mission since we talk about communications and marketing, right? And really storytelling. How many people on Long Island are affected by food insecurity? And what is food insecurity? Food insecurity, maybe people don't know what that
means. So the definition, I'm going to read it because I always have to like to get the actual. So the USDA defines food insecurity as a lack of consistent access to enough food for every person in a household to live an active, healthy life. That's the definition of food insecurity. It may not mean that you're hungry today. Maybe you were able to get food today, but it's consistent access to healthy food that keeps you living a healthy, active lifestyle. That's what we focus on. Long Island Care's mission to, make sure that not only do people have access to food, but they have resources to make sure that they can lift themselves out of that cycle that keeps them coming to food pantries, the cycle of poverty, of whatever that is, that keeps them relying, on a food pantry to get food or some sort of emergency assistance. We also focus on you talked about a little bit, what the root causes of hunger are. And that's some of the work that we do in advocacy and educating the general public about what are the root causes of hunger and how do we help people, again, lift them out of that cycle to get them to a place where they don't have to worry about food, that they know it's consistent in their lives. Right now on Long Island, 220,000 people are food insecure, which includes about 68,000 children that may not be sure where their next meal is coming from. And that is the definition of food insecurity.
Yeah, I'm just trying to Google something real quick because I want to make sure I get it right. Blessings in a Backpack is an organization that's done some work locally, and I helped them with an event. It must have been spring. It was warm out. It wasn't like it is now, so it was warm out. That's how I remember. And I emceed a casino night that they had last year, and there's children that go home on the weekends that don't know if they're going to have a meal on the weekends, and on Long Island.
Yes. So we actually also have a program that's like that. There are so many wonderful organizations on Long Island that are trying to help people who are food insecure. Long Island Cares actually supports almost 340 what we call member agencies or partners. So those are soup kitchens, food pantries that are in the community that get a large portion of the food they distribute locally, grassroots in the community from Long Island Cares as the food bank.
So let me just stop right there. I want to get contextually what that looks like from logistics. Like, what does that mean? Because I know in my neighborhood here, and it's also, they're one of the semifinalists in the Imagine Awards, is a place called Nosh.
Yes, they're one of our agencies.
Right. So, okay. So, and then I mentioned earlier, the Nest at Nassau Community College. Shout out to Nassau. I went there. I graduated from there too.
Awesome.
I didn't just go there. Like I didn't just pass by. Like, did you go to Nassau at all or no?
No, I'm an LIU Southampton grad.
All right. I could dig it, right? And I also finished up at SUNY Old Westbury. Gang, I think I said it last week on the show. SUNY and CUNY schools, man, seriously, take a look. Take a look. But I remember when I used to go to Nassau, this is a long time ago. I graduated high school in 96. And back then the whole parking lot wasn't done. So they had like piles of sand, right? And they didn't have enough parking spots for the first 2 weeks of classes. And then they did. If you read between the lines,
Yeah.
After people started dropping classes, you were able to get parking, but it was anyway, trying to be funny. So I was out there and I got to meet with my new friends Sharon and Helen over at the Nest. These organizations, you say 340 member agencies, can I think in terms of their distribution point for the community,
Right.
and your organizations like the wholesaler?
So we are we're a bank. So we get large amounts of food, we store it, we get it back out into the community. So that's where the majority of our funding goes, is to either purchase food, acquire food, get food donated, and then we're distributing a large portion of it through our member agencies. We also operate 7 of our own food pantries in the community, as well as having many mobile programs. So we're going out into the community and we're meeting people where they are. We're making sure that food is delivered to people who are homebound, who can't get out. We're going to, to veterans offices. We're going to senior living areas. We actually have a program called Hope for the Homeless. Very different from any homeless program on Long Island, in that Hope for the Homeless provides food to people who are homeless who are not sheltered. So these are people living in the elements right now in our 9-degree weather, who are on Long Island without a home. Come
on, Catherine, what are we doing? Like, what? I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at, but like, what are we doing, humans? Like, come on. I can't, because I cry, I yell, forget it. But Hope for the Home, excuse me.
Hope for the Homeless, yeah.
Hope for the Homeless, where again, you're meeting people where they are, getting them what they need. And again, if someone's homeless, you can't give them a microwavable food. You can't give them something he's a big cook. We got to be mindful of what we're providing to certain people in certain challenging situations. Logistically, if you're moving so much of this food, and back to the stats that we said 16 million pounds of food in 24. I mean, you have your own trucks. Like, how many people work for this organization?
So we now have almost 80 people that work for the organization, but we have, well over 1,200 individuals who volunteer to assist us. And those are volunteers who help distribute food. Those are people who come to our warehouse here in Hauppauge in the industrial park and sort through donations of food, repackage them to get them back out into the community. They are volunteers that are helping us do education programs that are helping in a lot of different ways to deliver not only food, but resources to people who are in need. We couldn't do it without those 1,200 volunteers. There's no way that 80 people are going to be able to distribute 16 million pounds of food. But we are supported by a large fleet of trucks. Our agencies can also come here to pick up food directly. We often do what we call farmers markets for our agencies, where they come right here to pick up fresh produce and take it right back to their agencies to distribute it. We will have, I'm so excited about this, starting at the end of this month, we have a mobile farmers market truck.
Wow.
That will be going out into the community to deliver fresh produce, dairy, eggs and things like that directly into the community, which is really helpful, especially because some of our member agencies don't have refrigeration. They only deal in shelf stable food. So, your canned vegetables, canned meats, bags of grains and things, to be able to get fresh produce, because we know that that's the healthiest way to get people good food. We're going to be able to deliver that right to the community.
I ask you the question that, like, I didn't know I was going to ask, but it just came up for me right now. Like, social determinants of health. Right. So let's think in terms of, you have a background in working in hospital systems and with the cancer and different organizations that are related to cancer. And I didn't get to make a point. Gang, Long Island tragically has always had this breast cancer situation going on, for so long. So, it kind of popped up when you talked about the water and you were doing the research and, you were on that program. Social determinants of health, man. I think in terms of, you just mentioned it with produce and getting people good whole foods, right? And not just boxed foods and things like that, and ultra processed. And there's this woman who I just dig what her and her brother are doing. Casey Means got this book, Good Energy, and she's a former Stanford MD in ear, nose, and throat, I think it was. And she kind of like stepped away from being that and is now talking about ultra processed food and some of the health challenges and things like that. I don't want to get on that whole thing, although it sounded like we were going there. We're not. The thing I'm getting to here is healthy whole foods, like you're talking about, really are what the body needs. And I guess if you could speak to making sure certain communities that are, quote unquote food deserts and have challenges getting access to this food, how important that is.
I mean, so as the region, what differentiates the food bank, Long Island Cares, the regional food bank, from a food pantry is because we are the food bank, we have to adhere to certain standards. So we are making sure that our agencies and the people that we serve directly are getting full meals. So they're not just getting a box of macaroni and cheese and a can of green beans. They're getting proteins, they're getting vegetables, that are getting fruits, they are getting whole foods, they are getting healthy foods. We have 2 nutritionists on staff. And part of their role is to teach our agencies how to utilize the food that we get through the food bank. So, grains that might be unfamiliar to people, quinoa, which I think more people are familiar with now. But what do you do with that? What do you do with kale?
Quinoa? Did you mean
Yes.
quinoa?
But my mother used to call it quinoa.
I love quinoa. I think it's great, man. And it's so healthy for you too. It's good stuff.
Yeah, so those are some of the things that we do, is really educate people also in how to choose the right foods. So one of the things that we ask people when they come to our food pantries is, first of all, what kind of foods are you looking for? So we make sure that we have culturally appropriate foods. We make sure that if someone has to be on a low salt diet because of medical reasons, or they're a diabetic, or they have heart disease, we listen to what their human needs are, as far as what kind of foods do they prefer. What kind of foods go with their culture? Do they keep kosher? Do they only eat halal food? Are they Asian? Are they looking for foods that are different than someone who may be Native American, who's coming in and looking for a different kind of food? So those are the things we listen to, and then we provide them with guidance to make sure that they are getting a full spectrum of healthy foods. So though you can go into a food pantry and see a box of Frosted Flakes, we're going to make sure that they're choosing whole grain foods. Those are sort of the off topic foods. At Halloween, of course, we're making sure that families that come in with kids, if we have access to some things to fill up a Halloween basket, we're going to give them treats, because who doesn't want that? But we're really focusing on healthy foods and food as health. That's a big movement.
100%. Hippocrates, let our food be our medicine, let our medicine be our food, right? And while I am not clinical, hey, gang, I'm not an MD. I know you probably get confused when you see me, like, he must be a doctor. I'm not. But I will tell you, I'm a human and I know stuff. And I will tell you this, although you mentioned Frosted Flakes, Tony the Tiger, they're great. They're not that great. Although when you put them in a bowl with ice cold milk, they really are pretty great. I got to be honest with you. But they're not great for you is what I'm saying. So don't eat all that junk food. Listen, Kellogg's and all your friends, don't be mad at Tommy D. I'm just a guy in an attic. But I think it's important to realize we must put good, healthy, whole food in our systems, because it protects us now and protects us in the future and later in life. We got enough stuff coming at us that's not so great. So we got to focus on good food. I am not always good at that because I like sugar and I like cookies, but that's a whole nother thing for another day. My friends who know me are like, he loves Entenmann's cookies. He eats them all. He eats a whole box by himself. And it is Girl Scout cookie season. So shout out to Randy Bynum at Girl Scouts of Nassau County. Shout out to Tammy Severino and the team at Girl Scouts at Suffolk County. I love tag-alongs. If you're worried about it, the ones with peanut butter and chocolate. I don't know if anybody's worried about it. Catherine, how fun is this show, right?
Interesting, but yes, and you know what? We get lots of donations of Girl Scout cookies too. So, they go into what we call snack boxes for our agencies.
No doubt, no doubt. A couple of things I want to come back to when we come back later on, probably not today, but when we talk offline, is how do I get to come on the mobile farmers market truck to help one day? That maybe I'll drive behind the truck if you don't have the insurance to put me on the truck. But we'll talk about that. I think that's I think people to see that come into the communities is critically important. When we come back, I want to talk about, what the cost of food was in 2019, right? And then, what it cost your organization for food, and then what you've seen it go up, because we were chatting about that in the virtual green room. So we got a lot to cover. Want to get into what you need, who can we connect you with? Although you're a force here on Long Island, I'm sure there's some people that are not connected to you that could benefit you, and vice versa. They could benefit from knowing you and the organization. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right, we'll be right back. I'm Tommy D. Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Phocus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
We're back. It's funny. It's so funny because this started out as an idea, and it was an idea that I went around and told people for about 2 years. And I said, I'm going to do a show. It's going to be called Philanthropy and Focus, and I'm going to draw a picture of myself, and that's going to be what the show logo is and all this kind of stuff. And now, coming up in a couple of weeks, we'll hit 200 episodes of that idea. And I tell you that because it's definitely an accolade, and I'm happy about it, and I'm jazzed about it. And that's 200 conversations with leaders and nonprofits to do just what I talk about, helping tell their story and amplify their message. And yay, happy for me. Kudos. I appreciate that. But I'm telling you that because if you have an idea, do the thing. Try the thing out. Honestly, it's just lean in, give it a shot. As I've said probably 30 times on this show, it's probably not going to come out exactly like you expected, which is cool in my book, man, because maybe it's supposed to evolve into something else. What am I saying? Like, I started this new program, this new campaign called Ending the Stigma Together, all about mental health and addressing the conversation that we must have about normalizing the conversation about serious mental illness and mental challenges and mental illness. And now I have a whole program where I bring people on and we talk about that. And I got 3 people from Zucker Hillside Hospital, a doctor, a nurse, and a peer advocate coming on that show in a couple of weeks. And it's like just telling stories about how do we normalize that. So, a lot of these things, a lot of these topics that I talk about on this program run together, and they kind of have this Venn diagram where things are related and stuff like that. Whether it be substance abuse or, as that relates to mental health and things, often in times people, as food insecurity comes up, different things, different challenges, socioeconomic situations, Catherine, all these things happen. And I don't say collaborate, but people are affected by multiple challenges like this. And I think if we find a way to be more loving and more compassionate and look out and turn to the person next to you and say, hey, what do you need? How can I help you, man? There was 4 young boys from Liverpool, England that said, all you need is love. Maybe they had something. So maybe they did. Catherine, what does it look like from, a perspective of, I have to assume that there's more need than you, your organization, and your 340 partner agencies are able to manage, right? Like you said to me, like, in 2024, we said the numbers a couple times, but that was the worst numbers since the COVID era of 2020. So we're not trending in the right direction here, it sounds like. And what I said to you I had mentioned a friend of ours said to me, food costs are up 25%. like across the board, and they're not coming down. So can you talk about your food cost and what really, like, of course, you're solving a problem here, right? We're addressing an issue and a need. However, we need more help, right?
So, I mean, I can only speak to, I started here in 2019, right before the pandemic. So I made the switch, to Long Island Cares. And when I came on board, we had a very small team in development, and there really wasn't marketing and communications here at the time. We had some staff doing the role, but there wasn't a component to that. At the time, we were under $1 a pound on average, what the food bank was paying for food. And that's because of the food bank and the buying power and the amount of food that we're buying, what we were able to get. It's also because we are the regional food bank, so we do have the Emergency Food Assistance Program, the TFAP. We are the agency that administers that, so we're able to buy food at low cost from the federal government, also state programs as well. So we were I think we were around, if I remember correctly, around 99 cents a pound. We're over $1.50 in 2025. So that's a huge change. And part of it is the pandemic. We heard, how many times have we heard the words, food chain disruption, during the pandemic? And that was reality. When restaurants are shutting down and schools are shutting down and not buying food like that, farmers in lots of locations weren't able to sell their crops because people were buying them in the huge numbers. The average consumer wasn't buying, 6 pallets of green beans, so they didn't know what to do with the food. That presented us some issues here on Long Island because we weren't able to get some of the food that we were normally getting, and there were food chain disruptions because people were sick and trucks weren't on the road, so there was no one to deliver. Some of the ways that we solve that problem are we're developing new relationships here with Long Island farmers.
That's critically important, man. Like, I'm not going to get into my whole complaining about how an orange starts on the other side of the country or even on the other side of the planet to get to Long Island, because we have resources here. And if we're going to talk about the environment and all those trucks and all that moving to get that orange over here. Again, maybe it's not an orange. I like kiwis. Maybe it's a kiwi. I don't think they grow kiwi in Suffolk County. But
yes, they do.
Do they really? We grow.
Yeah, it's a different kind of kiwi, but you can buy kiwi vines and grow your own kiwis.
We didn't even plan that. You and
this big.
We didn't plan that. I ate like 5 of them last night, so I'd have to eat 10 of these. It sounds like. But
anyway, online, you can find some kiwi plants.
See how life is. I didn't even know we grow. I thought it was just wine country out there in Suffolk County. I didn't know they had kiwi out there. Well, I'll have to talk about it. So those relationships with those local farmers, right? Not only is it good because it supports the local agriculture, supports those farmers, local businesses, but it also supports the planet from the perspective of you didn't have to truck that thing across the country. Right?
Well, and we also were able to impact families here on Long Island. So, number one, Haskell Fisheries, got a big shout out to Haskell for being a sponsor, for helping us feed people. But during the pandemic, they used to sell a lot to restaurants, and restaurants weren't buying. We were able to create a new relationship with them where they were able to supply us with local Long Island fish, and that kept his fishermen in business, kept their families fed, and kept people that needed food on Long Island fed too. So, huge shout out to being able to do that. And Harb's Farm out east and a lot of the big farms out on the East End are now partners with us in making sure people are fed.
And they had not been prior to the pandemic. So that was like a catalyst kind of like.
We had some relationships with them, but we certainly expanded them in big ways and developed relationships where not only are we able to support them through purchasing, but they're also giving back. So maybe it's we buy 2 pallets and we get, half a pallet free or a pallet free, or they have an overstock, or their cauliflower goes crazy and they're able to donate, more of that to us. So it's a give and take relationship. We're supporting them, making sure that their people are employed and fed, and they're helping us employ and feed people here on Long Island.
Unbelievable. Real quick question I have to ask, because from a development perspective, from a marketing communications perspective, like I hang out with a lot of development people. Some of them are probably listening to the show right now. Those are new relationships or enhanced relationships. Drop some knowledge about that. How did you go about doing that? Because that's important.
I mean, it's really looking at your circle of influence. You should be familiar with that.
A little bit.
Who are the people that you know, but who are the people they know?
Yes.
And who is interested in the issue of food insecurity on Long Island? Who is looking to help neighbors who are struggling? Who wants to make sure that people who live on Long Island are living their happiest? How do you make families thrive here on Long Island? I'm not a native Long Islander. I'm a transplant from upstate, and FYI, Syracuse, it's, kind of side state.
Listen, I got to tell you the truth. Here's the deal about that whole thing. I'm from Long Island. All right. I grew up here my whole life. I barely left for more than like 8 days in a row, right? Ever. And, we sort of forget that there's a whole state north of the Bronx.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, oh, what are you, upstate? And the guy's like, I'm in Westchester.
Yeah, that's downstate.
That's not upstate, bro.
I grew up in Rochester, New York.
All right, so
Ontario.
Yeah, that's paychecks country up there in Rochester. I was an old ADP guy, so I know paychecks up that way. Gets cold up there in almost Canada, right?
My brother is stationed at Fort Drum, so that's like the tundra up there. It's just ice. That's all that's up there.
Yeah, that's I don't like being cold, man. I don't like being cold. I've said it forever. I just Google Fort Drum. Army, is that right?
Yeah.
So, dude, shout out to your brother. Thank you for your service, everybody with him up there. Thank you for what you do for this country. That's a whole other topic. Shout out to my friend over Shannon Boyle over at Newground. I'm sure you probably know Shannon, breaking the cycle of homelessness for our veteran community. It's tragic and unexplainable that we have anybody homeless in this country. And then you add the effect that our veterans are homeless, and it's a whole nother situation. I want to talk about, we'll come back. I want to talk about the future of the organization, what's upcoming, how we can help. This is the time when people say, hey, Tommy D, you know what I need? I need this. Shout out to Haskell Fisheries, shout out to Harbs. I always bring my kids out for pumpkin, out to Harbs and stuff like that. But what I heard, I wrote this down, #ripple effect. The whole time you were talking about keeping people employed, keeping families together, keeping people again, think about the fishermen during COVID, fisherman, person who would have lost their income. How did that ripple negatively to their family? But by these alliances, that they were able to, Haskell and Harbs, for example, were able to get business and do business with your organization. Unbelievable. That's who I hang out with, people who are making change. Catherine, I'm out of breath. We got to take a break. I'm right back. And we'll show. Thank you.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
This is the lightning round, baby. I sound like Jim Cramer, that guy, a crazy maniac on CNBC. This is the lightning round way before there was Mad Money. This is the lightning round from like at the end of the game show when they go beep, 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 beep. Oh, it means we're out of time, Pat Sajak said. We must now spin the wheel and everything will be worth $1,000. That's not what this show is about. I saw you getting very entertained when we were coming back from break as I was dancing to my song, Catherine Fritz. So I will say this. You should be happy, although maybe you won't be happy. But back in the day, I used to try to convince my guests to sing my theme song with me. But I don't. Are you a singer?
I plead the fifth.
All right, fair enough. No singing today, Tommy D. No singing today. Get on with the show, bro. All right. So I'm just jazzed that you're here. I'm so happy to have met you. You just mentioned something in chat. Let's shout that out. Tuesdays at our food pantries. What's that about?
So Tuesdays at all the food pantries Long Island Cares runs, which you can access by going on our website. Just hit find food and you'll be able to see our food pantries. We have what we call Veterans Appreciation Tuesdays, which means the pantries are open to veterans and their families only. And the reason why we do that is to give veterans a comfortable space that they know that they're safe. They can talk about the issues that they're incurring as veterans, get food, get resources, talk to other veterans, find ways to get other assistance that they need. It's one of our areas of focus. We also have staff that deliver directly to veterans. We do veterans distributions very specific to veterans to make sure veterans and their families are supported. As a sister of two veterans, I've grown up in the military world. Army and Navy was always fun on Army.
Oh
Navy.
yeah, that's a good game. You go to the game. You go up to West Point and see that.
Yes, I spent a lot of years at West Point. Dances and a lot of fine-looking people in uniform.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's important that we're serving veterans, and my own personal opinion. The fact that these are men and women that, wrote a blank check to our country and lived out their service and are now having to come and seek assistance. It's a hard place for a veteran to ask for help. They're used to giving help. So that is, it's something that is close to my heart here at Long Island Cares, that we reach out specifically and target veterans for help and make sure that they know that we respect them. We want to make them comfortable. You talk about erasing the stigma of mental health. We're trying to erase the stigma of coming to a food pantry and make it known that it's a safe space.
This is the shirt. This is what we got, gang. This is the brand. Hashtag ending the stigma. The coffee mugs, I got them locked away, but the coffee mugs are here because you know what it is? It's critically important to end the stigma, not just about mental health. It's critically important to end the stigma around homelessness, around having conversations with people, around HIV and AIDS. There's a whole bunch of stigmas we got to work on. So the ambiguity of ending the stigma was not even planned that way, but it's coming out to me that it's like more and more opportunities to keep focusing on that. Thank you for your love and compassion and concern for our veteran community. Thank you for your love and compassion and concern as an organization for everyone, especially the folks we just mentioned. I want to ask you, do you know Lonnie Sherman over at General Needs?
I know the name. I don't know that I've ever met him.
You would. So real quick story. Lonnie Sherman used to be called the Underwear Man, and I guess maybe in some circles he still is called the Underwear Man. They have a spot. I'm not going to tell people where it is, but they have a storage facility that they must have like 12 units in a storage facility. Boots, brand new stuff, boots, underwear, socks, towels, toiletries, all these unbelievable things that people need, veterans specific. They serve veterans, all with the general needs, the most basic needs. So he was being called the Underwear Man for a long time, but it's all volunteer. So if you the organization might be already collaborating at some.
I was going to say, I think Justin, who is our staff person, that is really our link to the veterans community. I'm pretty sure he works with Lonnie. I've heard that. Good. Coming across and getting some veterans, some other resources. So yeah. Justin,
if you don't, reach out to your boy, Tommy D, the kid. Let's go. Give me a call. I'm not going to put my phone number out here. A lot of people listen to this show, but TommyD.NYC on Instagram, Tommy D at Philanthropy and Phocus, PHOCUS. Not just for Justin, for anybody who wants to send me an email.com. I think I left out the .com thing. What's upcoming for the organization? Where do you see some needs, some new collaborators, stuff like that?
Well, so we know I just got the stats, for 2024, and we have seen just again in our satellite food pantries, so those 7 pantries that we run as staff, a 28% increase in people coming for need in 2024.
Like new people or
new people. In fact, 4,689 new families seen at just our 7 satellites.
Since when? What time frame?
In 2024.
So if you go year over year from 23 to 24, you're seeing a 28% increase in need with probably, no, we're not looking, I don't think it's getting any better.
No, and that's not looking at those 340 member agencies. That's just the 7.
When it comes to your 7.
Correct. Right. So yeah, we definitely know that there's a need. So that's something we're focusing on. Clearly, my team, we have to raise more money. We have to engage more people with our mission. We have to get people to understand what food insecurity on Long Island looks like. We're engaging people in lots of different ways. We have events that people can get involved with. They can volunteer in a lot of different ways. Super simple to volunteer at Long Island Cares. Go onto that website, licares.org, click volunteerism, and you can sign up online, see all the different positions we have across all of our food pantries, all the different ways you can get involved. We have ways for corporations to bring teams to our locations and do, team building exercises by, volunteering in our warehouse. So just lots of different ways to get involved. We have some fun events coming up. So for those of you who are golfers, Sabonic might be a name that you are familiar with.
Bougie. That's what I hear when I hear Savannah.
Super bougie golf tournament. We are hosting for the first time ever an event at Sabonic this year on May 5th. We are open right now only to sponsorships. You want to guarantee that you get a foursome at Sabonic? We have some sponsorships available. You can find
a premium event. For folks that don't know, that's a premium event to walk on Sabonic. Yeah.
You cannot play on Sabonic. You have to be a member only, and we are given this opportunity to partner with Sabonic to host a great event. We have a great pause walk coming in September. It's a run and walk that's at Belmont Lake State Park. Bring your four-legged friends and run or walk around the lake. It's a beautiful location, and it all helps raise money for a little something special that we do at Long Island Cares.
About Baxter's. Tell me about Baxter's.
Baxter's Pet Pantry. So we are one of the first food pantries to have a separate food pantry just for pets. We recognize that people who are food insecure, a lot of those families have pets in their family. And what Long Island Cares saw was that people were taking the food that was designed for them and feeding their pets with it. We couldn't let that stand. So Baxter's Pet Pantry was developed to make sure that we had pet food available to families that were coming in needing food for their own families and including those pets. And when I say pets, I mean birds, cats, dogs, not snakes. Sorry, we're not doing that. But, a lot of other kinds of pets, we can give them food and supplies, pet beds, cat litter, things like that. Because we recognize that pets are part of the family. And
shout out to my guy Cheeto, who's downstairs. He wanted to be up here for the meeting, but he was too busy talking to my wife and some of the kids or whatever, but he'll come up for the next show. I want to feature Baxter's on the other show we do, the Professionals and Animal Lovers show. In fact, when I ran into Paul, CEO of your organization, that somehow, I don't know what we were talking about, but somehow we talked about the animals. And I think that's how I first got connected to you and your team while Paul and I were talking. Anyway, we got the thing about my show is we always run out of time before we run out of words. That could be the mantra of the show. But we're gonna leave it there. If you want to connect with Catherine and her team, you can go to the website licares.org. What else? Is there something else you want them to call or anything?
Listen, I want them to go to our website. I want them to look around, see what's happening on Long Island, understand what food insecurity looks like. And if you're interested in helping, reach out. Reach out to my team, to any one of our VPs. Lots of different ways that you can help. Donate food. We have food drives. You can do virtual food drives. Kids love getting sort of involved. So hosting a food drive where you're collecting food and delivering it right here and seeing how it gets back out in the community, perfect way to start.
I can't say enough about kids and getting involved. Certainly my 4 kids have watched a bunch of that through the stuff I'm involved with, and it's changed their lives. And we'll talk more about it on another show. We'll get to Baxter's at another point. I appreciate your time, Catherine Fritz. Thanks for doing what you do. Thanks for being on the front lines. Thank you to all the veteran community, your family, and everybody else. I appreciate the nonprofit sector. I leave you with this. I'm Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector. Get out, connect with your local nonprofit organizations, be part of the change. This is another In Focus production. Make it a great day. See you later. Bye now.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his